I've been feeling so dysregulated lately and just stuck in this state without knowing how to get out of it. As an autistic adult, I'm used to feeling dysregulated. I get dysregulated in social situations with sensory overwhelm, but this has felt like something different, like a frantic energy in my chest that feels like I'm forgetting something, and I would do anything to get rid of this feeling. I felt like I was pretty close to a breaking point last week, and then almost like magic, I came across these 4 new terms that have brought so much clarity. And it sounds dramatic, but I really feel like they're changing my life. I genuinely am so excited to share what I've been learning with you because I know that I can help you deal with this persistent, nagging, awful, dysregulated feeling today. I'm going to help you get relief today. So let's get right to it. There are 3 terms that I want to share with you that are taken from Hindu philosophy to help describe a person's nature or behavior. So these 3 aren't really new. They've been around forever, but they're new to me and maybe they'll be new to you. But these 3 terms are tamas, rajas, and sattva. And I apologize if I'm mispronouncing any of those. Now would be a good time to remind you to do your own research. I'm not an expert in this field. I'm an autistic mom who really likes to learn new things. So tamas and rajas are essentially opposing forces. Tamas is the tendency towards lethargy and apathy, and rajas is the tendency towards activity and passion. Too much of that rajas energy can lead to burnout, and too much of the lethargic tamas energy can lead to depression. A balance between the two is called sattva. Sattva is a calm mind. It's a state of being when you're neither striving nor unmotivated. It's a state of heightened clarity and awareness. Speaking of a calm mind, and forgive me for the really cheesy segue, I've got my Quiet Mind mini pillow here with me. This is a weighted pillow, and the texture, if you can't tell, is basically sensory bliss. I keep it at my desk always. It helps me feel more calm during meetings, and honestly, it just makes me happy every time I see it. If you love miniature comfort items like I do, I'll put my affiliate link for this in the description, and you can use the code MOMONTHESPECTRUM for 15% off at checkout. So let's get back to our terms, a little refresher. So tamas is that lethargic, slow energy. Rajas is the active, quick energy. Sattva is a balanced state between the two. When I came across these terms, I immediately in my head connected it to the idea of autistic inertia. If that term is new to you, it's basically this idea that an autistic person wants to remain in the same state. So if an autistic person is at rest, they want to stay at rest. And if an autistic person is task focused, they want to remain task focused. And to switch between those two states requires a great deal of energy. To me, managing autistic inertia feels like trying to find sattva, that balance between lots of activity and lots of rest. I don't want to be lazy. I don't want to overwork myself. I just want to find that sweet spot, that flow state where it feels easy to make decisions, where ideas come easily to me, and I don't have to think too hard about what to do next. That's not too much to ask, right? So let's jump back to that challenge I mentioned at the beginning of the video. This feeling like I'm forgetting something, like there's this chronic state of just unease inside of my chest. I am realizing that when I feel this way, it's because there's too much rajas energy, there's too much activity, but particularly in the form of information dysregulation. And that's the 4th term I want to share with you today. This is a term that I'm using to describe my own experiences, but I know it applies to many of you because I've talked to you. Information dysregulation happens so often for autistic people because generally speaking, we love to learn about anything and everything, or at least lots of things, and we don't necessarily do a whole lot with that information when we learn it. So it's kind of learning for the sake of learning. Again, everything I just said is a big generalization, but when we constantly consume, when we have input, we have intake of information all the time, it's like a traffic jam. We have all of this stuff and nowhere for it to go. So it just piles up. And it can lead to this feeling of just being so overwhelmed and uncomfortable because for me, it's like, this is actually taking up space and real estate inside of my body and pressing against my skin. Where does it go? In order to find relief from this buildup of information, the information dysregulation, we have to integrate the information into our lives in a meaningful way. I am finding that the way to integrate all of the stuff that we input into our lives is to create more output. And that word create is really important too. Create output. Let's talk about it. This is kind of the way the world works in 2025. We are bombarded with input, ads, articles, new research, new trends, new experiences. All of these things are feeding our brains with more information and more things to process. Now, think about it. For me, this was such a light bulb. Like, duh, obviously. As an autistic person, knowing that I need more time to process things than other people, it makes total sense that I need to slow down and allow myself time to process all of the many things that I'm learning. But do I give myself that time? No, not usually. How many of you have scrolled for a really long time on social media only to feel more dysregulated? Because I don't know if you're a nerd like me, but my algorithm is like, I don't always feel guilty scrolling because I'm like, I'm learning about psychology. I'm learning about emotional boundaries. I'm learning about health, And so I'll stay on the algorithm for a while. And I've got all of this cool information, but do I actually ever do anything with it? I mean, sometimes, yes, I have a YouTube channel and I talk about things I've learned, but the amount of things that I integrate compared to the amount of things that I learn are vastly disproportionate. So much input with very little output. So, whether or not you realize it, all of these things that we're learning every day, it takes up space in our brains and our hearts. I know that sounds a little cheesy, but we hear things, we see things, and we don't process them and it sticks. I believe that we can offset this input by tapping into more of the Tamas energy, that lethargic, slowed down, processing space energy. Also, I believe we tap into this through creating. Now, that might seem counterintuitive, the slower paced rest in conjunction with creativity, but I really think it's important to slow down in order to create. I was thinking about this yesterday. How many of you have watched a new episode of your favorite show and then you immediately get on social media after the show ends and start reading other people's opinions on it? Severance, anyone? Because I'm just obsessed with that show. And I realized so many times I didn't even stop to form my own opinions first on this before I hopped online to read about it. And it's so important that we give ourselves space and time to process this, to ask ourselves questions after we take in new information, like, how does this actually relate to my life? How do I actually feel about this? Is there anything I can do to help out in this situation that I'm seeing on the news, right? Whatever it might be, actually stopping, reflecting, and integrating it into our lives in a meaningful way. Understanding how something impacts us personally. And now that I say that out loud, that can be quite terrifying for some of us at this point in the world, right? With current events. And we won't get into that topic right now. It's a video for another day. But it makes sense that we would not prioritize slowing down enough to think about so much of the stuff that we consume because it might hurt. It might be very uncomfortable. It might not feel good. What's the alternative? Letting it build up, up, and making us very uncomfortable without necessarily understanding why. So either side of the coin, you're going to have discomfort, frustration, upset, dysregulation. But by pausing to process, there's actually a lot more control and autonomy over that path rather than waiting until it's a buildup that just explodes and makes us feel awful and dysregulated and too burnt out to do anything about it. Another way to think about slowing down in order to create would be to consider your favorite authors who sometimes go off the grid so that they can bring a new book into the world, right? Or an athlete who kind of disappears for a while so that they can have intense training sessions before that big event. We see so many examples of this where somebody will remove themselves from distractions, particularly at a high level, right? People at a high level will remove themselves from distractions in order to create something new. There's a reason people do this. It's effective. But I really feel like, especially for autistic people, this process also needs to be done on a smaller scale daily, not just waiting until things escalate to the point that we're in burnout, but daily taking time, building time into our schedules to pause, to reflect. This can be done by taking breaks during the day to just pace. Okay, just pace, just walk. Rather than scrolling because you're overwhelmed, just walk through your house. If the weather's nice, take a walk around the block. You can stem. You can turn on Whitney Houston in your kitchen and have a little dance party. Just something that allows you to move energy out of your body without requiring you to take in more information. I've also started building little creativity breaks into my schedule. I start the day with like 5 minutes. Really, it can just be a quick little 5-minute, just me writing something. I don't have to share it with anybody. It doesn't have to be good. It doesn't have to mean anything. I just write. And that alone, like 5 minutes of that is totally changing my life, y'all. It doesn't even have to mean anything or amount to anything. It's just one little creative outlet so that I'm not taking in information. I'm actually putting something out. I'm enjoying it so much that I'm starting to put more of those creative breaks in my day. I'll just sit at the piano for 5 minutes and play something. I'll get my flute out. I'll write a haiku. Just these little brief snippets of creativity and output where I'm not giving myself more things to process and understand. I'm giving myself outlets to respond, to create, to integrate, to understand how something affects me, and to actually give myself time to feel it. It can be scary, I know, but it's so important. And again, reflecting back on what I said just a little bit ago, autonomy is so important for autistic people. So we have two options. We can wait until everything builds up and becomes an emergency, or we can have the autonomy now and create pockets in our day where we have control over when and how we process things. I feel silly even mentioning this, but I've had to consciously tell myself not to scroll on my phone when I'm walking. Like, that's how addicted I am to my phone sometimes. I have to tell myself, hey, let's not get more information while I'm walking from place to place. Like, let's just walk. Stuff like that, where I can just cut down here and there. It really adds up all day, cutting down on the information overload. I want to take this one step further for our community, and that's that many of us have trouble identifying our wants and needs. There's many reasons for this. Some can be tied back to trauma and unhealthy relationships, but also, could it be that we're allowing too many voices, too many sources of information into our lives that we lose track of what we actually want and need? I feel like so often I'm kind of this spinning top, and it's like I just need a safe, quiet place where I can let the top quit spinning and just come to stillness. And I think that's what so many of us are lacking, is the space to just let the streams of information silence themselves, to just fizzle out and quit spinning and come to a rest so that you can actually take a breath and think, okay, what do I want in this moment? What do I need in this moment? And do that over and over and over again. It's not selfish, it's vital to survival and growth and creativity and healing and being present. Okay, so let's talk about practical ways to start getting relief from this frantic energy, from the information dysregulation today. Step number one, identify that you're dysregulated. Awareness is the first key to change. So whether it's out loud or in writing or texting your best friend, admitting, hey, I'm super dysregulated. The second thing we can do is slow down. Reduce the things on your calendar, say no to as many things as possible, reschedule, set more realistic expectations, lower your expectations. That's okay, that's not a failure. And build more rest time into your day. Even if it's just laying down, you don't have to actually sleep, because I have a hard time sleeping during the day. Just slow down. Lay down. I also have been really enjoying coloring because I don't have to think or learn anything, but I can still be active. I love to color. It's so healing and calming. The third thing we can do is limit the amount of input that we're allowing into our lives. How can you reduce the amount of information coming in? Do that. And now that I say that, I'm like, demand avoidance is going to kick in, and you're not. Do it in your own way, in your own time. What small and big steps can you take to reduce the amount of information that you come across every day? Number 4, talk about this frantic energy inside of you with someone. Don't isolate. Don't suffer in silence. Actually put a voice to the feelings. If you don't have anybody to talk to, write about it or find a trusted therapist that you can start processing this experience with. Whenever we keep things inside, it can make things feel more intense and overwhelming because we feel like we're the only one with this problem. Oftentimes, when we bring what we're struggling with into the light, it helps us realize that we're not alone. We're not the only people struggling with this, and it can give us a deeper connection to the people around us. And then the 5th one, the most important thing that is changing my life right now, when I am overwhelmed with input, create. Create something, anything, 5 minutes of writing, a 30-second haiku, dancing in a silly way in my kitchen, or just sitting down and trying to pick out a melody on the piano. Whatever that looks like for you. You don't have to be an artist. There are so many millions of ways to create. Don't make excuses here. Invent a way to create something. I don't know, that's paradoxical, but put things in here out. whatever that looks like. If you're up for a challenge, set a timer for 5 minutes, spend that whole time creating something, anything. You don't have to show it to anyone, and it doesn't have to be something you're proud of. Just do it. Do that every day for a week and see how it affects you, which is another important part of the process. When you create, after you do that, process that as well. How does it feel to do that? How does it feel to spend your time and energy putting things out into the world rather than taking? Spend some time understanding how that affects your energy throughout the day. For me, again, it's been a total game changer. I love the way I feel during the day when I take these little moments of time to actually put part of myself out into the world. When I feel that frantic energy, oh, yeah, I guess I've taken in a lot of news today. I guess I've taken in a lot of reels today. What have I actually done to create something? And then giving myself that opportunity. I want to explore these concepts from the other direction as well. How can we move away from a Tamas state, that lethargic kind of tendency for depression? How can we move away from that into a more centered state? So if that's something that might interest you, make sure that you subscribe to the channel so that you can stay up to date with all the latest videos. I'd love to hear in the comments about how this frantic energy might be showing up for you, and if you've discovered anything that helps you process that. Like I said, the first step towards change is that awareness around the problem. And so if we can be brave enough to maybe share some examples in the comments for the community, we can help others identify this in themselves and find some freedom. Please like this video if it was helpful to you. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.